G'day and welcome to another episode of Cuppa with a Jesuit. I'm Father Robin Koning, the Provincial Assistant for Vocations for the Australian Jesuit Province.
With Father Robin, I'm Julian Butler, a Jesuit in formation in training for priesthood, and we're joined today by Father Pham Van Ai. Father Ai, welcome.
So good afternoon. Thank you for having me at this moment with you.
Just to get us started, would you tell us a little bit about your current ministry? What's sort of taking your time at the moment in ministry work?
Yeah, my current ministry is the pastoral ministry as a chaplain to the Vietnamese Catholic community in Flemington at the place we call the Saint Vincent Center with Father Minh Ước. He's also a Jesuit priest and also my brother, my big brother. So we are chaplains. We have the weekday masses for the community, and at the weekend we have 4 masses. We have a lot of pastoral groups. Especially we have what they call the Eucharistic youth movement. You know, that's just very impressed to see the young people coming to the church to have the activities. Besides that, we have 4 choirs.
So I mean, a Vietnamese choir isn't just a choir, is it? These different communities that are meeting and gathering places for or communities that come together and share life together. How do you find life and joy in accompanying those communities?
The first thing is it is good to be with the people, especially to be with the young people. Nowadays it's good to see the young people still coming to pray and to be with one another and to support one another. That is just my joy, and also that's my motivation as well. It is good to listen to their stories, the new generations nowadays. I consider myself as the first generation to be in Australia as the migrant refugees. But now we have the second, even the third generation for those who have been born or were born in Australia here, grew up in Australia, and learning the Australian way of living and working, but they still come to the Vietnamese community center here with their own cultural background and heritage, and to share with one another. I think that's great, and I think that's animating. I could use the word animating.
Before this ministry, you've done a range of things. Part of that was spending quite a few years going backwards and forwards to Vietnam and helping with their formation programs there, where they had large numbers in formation and need for help there. Can you talk a bit about that side of your ministry back in Vietnam?
Yeah. At the moment, besides my pastoral ministry to the Vietnamese Catholics in Melbourne here, I am also doing some sessional teachings at the Catholic Theological College in Melbourne here. But very little now. But before that, I have been back to Australia for nearly 7 years now, and before that, I was working in the Philippines and in Vietnam, doing what we call teaching theology. I spent 3 years in the Philippines since 2005 until 2008, teaching at Loyola School of Theology, and also I work as a formator as a Arupe International Residency over there. But after 3 years in Manila, then, at the request of the Provincial of Vietnam, after years, the Jesuit scholastics or seminarians, they have to study, in different places, even underground. And now, at that time, the province considered that that was the proper time to be open and to organize a proper program for the Jesuit formation. So he asked me to go back to Vietnam to facilitate that program, and he appointed me as what we call the Dean of Theology for that in the Jesuit St. Joseph Jesuit Scholasticate in Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been working there as a dean and also as a teacher or lecturer in theology, moral theology for full time 7 years, and before that about 4 years as a as a guest lecturer, for 2 or 3 months a year.
And how was that for you, to be able to go back to your home country and to contribute something to the church there and to the Jesuits there?
I think that's I think not only I am helping them, but I think they are helping me as well. The first thing that's I consider that is great because I grew up in Vietnam. I was born in Vietnam, grew up in Vietnam, and I received my Christian faith from the Mother Church of Vietnam. And I consider that now is a good opportunity for me to go back there to share with them what I learned from overseas. Since I migrate to Australia, especially with my professional education in moral theology, is order to help the Jesuits there and I consider that there was and there is now still a great need there to educate or to teach, especially the young seminarians or the young scholastics, young Jesuits in theology. Yeah.
I maybe talking about that your background and growing up in Vietnam and receiving your faith. What led you to the Jesuits, to the Society of Jesus, having received that faith in Vietnam? How did you end up joining the Jesuits?
Yes. Before I became a Jesuit, I had been, a seminarian in the diocese of Long Xuyên. It's at the Mekong Delta in the south of Saigon, and I spent several years in formation there before 1975 as a minor seminarian, and then few years after that also to learn philosophy. And before I could move on in my formation, I was not allowed to do so. So that's why I left Vietnam. I escaped Vietnam in 1982 and arrived in Australia in 1983. And there's few things would help me to think about the Jesuit vocation. When I was a seminarian in Vietnam, I read a lot of Jesuit literatures, especially Jesuit history. Oh. And I think I admire the Jesuits who came to work in Vietnam, just people like Alexander de Rhodes, and in China like Matteo Ricci. The way they came to to the totally different culture, but how they adapt, the message of the gospel or evangelization in the midst of that culture, without losing what we call the essential message of Jesus. But and they have a very, I think, sensitive way of preaching the gospel to the people in Asia. That is first their wisdom, and the second thing is in South Vietnam before 1975, various Jesuits from different countries came to teach and to take the formation at the Pontifical College in Đà Lạt, to train, the seminarians, especially the selected one from the different dioceses. And now many of them now are bishops that, they are taking the leadership roles in Vietnam. And so their availability, their mobility, I think that is attractive, and especially their courage. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, they all decide to stay on. They all decide to stay on, to work, to commit what they have been doing until they were expelled from Vietnam. So I think that is also the good example for me, the daring courage, the daring heart they have. Or in the Jesuit way now, I learned of that one, the zeal they have, for the Jesuit mission, especially when they were sent to Vietnam. So those things, helped me. And then when I arrived in South Australia, and I met few Jesuits who inspired me a lot. The one who was the Jesuit vocation director in South Australia, Father Tom Nicholas, and another, the one is Father Jim McInerney, who just finished his term as a novice master, and under their guidance, I come to discover that what I nurture in my heart about the Jesuit life and the Jesuit vocation or the Jesuit mission is become a bit clearer. And so I decide, instead of joining the diocesan priesthood, I said, why don't I tried the Jesuit vocation, and I try and I stay.
So I, based on your experience of what attracted you to the Jesuits, and that the fact that you're still here with us, thankfully, if a young man came to you today asking about religious life, asking about Jesuit life, what might you say to encourage him?
I think just based on my own experience, I would share with you just that if you have a desire to be a Jesuit, because you have you have discovered something from the Jesuit life, Jesuit spirituality, or Jesuit missions, especially the examples of some good Jesuits you have a chance to contact. Why don't you try it? Try myself. Try it, and to discover, to find out, what you have in your mind, your heart, and whether that is true for you. That is true for your life.
Great. I thank you very much for those words of encouragement to someone listening and for sharing of your story, of your ministry and of your vocation story. It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
Bye.